Hi there. Welcome to the third in a series of videos about how to use Managebac effectively in your MYP class. In this video, we're going to look at some of the more advanced features of setting up your units. We're going to take the unit that we started in the previous video and add a few things to it. We certainly won't hit every single option to Managebac, but the things we cover should give you a good foundation onto which you can add other things. Now remember that in previous videos we created two separate classes, sophomore physics for the first and second period. And in the previous video we started to add the unit. We added the basics that provided the big picture. The big final thing we created in the last video is that statement of inquiry. It's a short statement that we should keep in mind when designing the rest of the unit. Every task, content, and test should be geared to helping the students understand that statement of inquiry better. I'm going to now add a few more things to my unit. In order to edit any unit, simply click on the title of that unit, and in the top right-hand corner, you'll see Edit Unit Plan. The first thing I'll deal with is the assessment. So I'll click on the right-hand tab, Assessment. Now, this is the page where you're going to talk about all the activities that your students have in order to demonstrate knowledge of the statement of inquiry. Now I'm going to leave that add task alone for right now. We're going to talk about adding tasks in a future video, but I do want to specify which of the MYP criteria are going to be covered in this unit. Now every MYP subject has 4 objectives or criteria that need to be covered twice per class per year. I'm going to try to cover 1 or 2 criteria in every unit. For sciences, criteria B and C are pretty much tied together since they're really just 2 different parts of a lab report. Now in this case, in this unit, I'm going to use criteria D. I'm going to have my students research a specific type of electromagnetic wave, and I want them to discover sort of how they're used, what they are, and then communicate that knowledge to the class through a written work and through a presentation. So in order to specify that, I'm going to click on all the objectives of criteria D and then specify that I am going to use criteria D assessment. Now, as always, I will save changes, so I make sure that doesn't go away for now. Next, we'll click on backwards planning. Backwards planning is where I put a lot of the information of what exactly I am going to cover. It's helpful to know what you're going to cover before you actually cover it so you can put it in a proper order. Now for content, I notice I can't really add any standards. That's sort of a little Managebac bug, but I can add knowledge or skills. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Tennessee state standards for physics and I'm going to add them to this knowledge and or skills category. It may not be perfect, but it works for me. Now there's 2 options for this. Obviously you have your PDF of your state standards. You can either copy all the standards for this unit and add them all at once, or you can add them one at a time, which I prefer. For example, my first standard for this unit is to investigate simple harmonic motion. I'll add a new one, and I will investigate and analyze wavelength, frequency, and amplitude of longitudinal and transverse waves. These are both standards from the state of Tennessee, and those are going to count for the knowledge and or skills that I'm going to cover. Now, obviously, I would normally have a lot more, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to just save those 2. Notice how they're bulleted nicely. If you combine a lot of different standards together, it can look pretty messy. I'll move over to approaches to learning. Now, if you remember, approaches to learning are non-content skills that you teach the students. In this case, due to my MYP assessment, I'm going to be helping students understand better how to use communication skills and how to collaborate together because they will be in groups for part of this. Now, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time going through all the different approaches to learning, but I'm going to add just a few of them. I'm just going to click fairly randomly here just to show you how this will work. And collaborative skills, let's just add a few of these on here. It would really help to go through these for every unit to think about what approaches to learning could you appropriately use in every single unit. And be thinking about that as you design your lessons. Now, remember, you don't have to use every single approaches to learning for the whole year. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll notice the learning experiences. This is where you type in what thing did you do in your class to teach the students these communication skills. That's obviously optional, but it's a good thing to add in so that if someone else is looking at your paper, they understand how you use those approaches to learning. I'm going to add those. I'll click Save Changes. Now, in the Learner Profile section, you'll notice the Learner Profile skills that we want our students to be able to develop. In this case, we can talk about which Learner Profile skill be emphasized. In this case, I'm going to select thinkers because in this chapter, my students are really able to think deeply about some things that they've never thought of before. And so I can type in a little description of why thinkers is an appropriate choice for this. I'm not going to do that in this case. I'll just click it and hit Save. There are a couple other options for the unit. For example, you have reflections and evaluations. This is a helpful thing to do, especially after teaching a unit. Now remember, these units stick around for the next year, and so if you can type in some things that you noticed about teaching the lesson, about what how the students did, what worked well, what didn't, you'll be able to read that next year and get that information. You'll see the Resources tab. This allows you to add resources. We're going to talk a little bit more about resources in future videos, simply because they tie in with the future video better. When I'm finished with all this, I save changes, and I can go back to my unit, and I can notice I have a nice unit set up. Now that my unit's fairly complete, it's not complete totally yet, but once I add my tasks, I could do a couple things. I could go ahead and print this unit. If I printed this unit, I would go ahead and be able to get a hard copy for when Managebac decides to delete my unit. I can also go ahead and find a subject group overview. This will show me all the units that I've done, all the information in a fairly nice form.